Okay, for the third statistics lesson, we're still working with scatter plots, but now we're going to add something that's called a trend line to these scatter plots. So when scatter plots demonstrate a linear relationship, a straight line can be used to show the general pattern of the data. A trend line, which we also call a line of best fit, is a straight line that should lie as close as possible to the points of data in the scatter plot. So for questions 1 to 4, we're just going to write yes or no to describe whether or not the line is a good trend line. And make sure you explain on your paper why you thought that. So for the first question, the trend line is drawn on the scatter plot, but I think this one's pretty obvious. That is no, that is not a good trend line. The green line that I just added there, that would be a better trend line for number 1. So if you want to add that in to show what it should look like, for the second one, I would say yes, this is a good trend line. It's right through the center of the data. Number 3 is close, but I think the trend line should be a little bit lower. And for number 4, it's also close, but I think the trend line needs to be a little bit higher up. So out of these 4, there's only one yes, and that would be question 2. That is what a good trend line should look like. The others are examples of trend lines that are not so great. So you also need to be able to write an equation of a trend line. We've been writing equations of lines pretty much the whole school year, so nothing really changes other than the fact that it's inside of a scatter plot. You basically choose any 2 points that are on the trend line. So not the data points. You create your own points. You set up a ratio of rise over run, and that will help us find the slope of the line, also known as the M. We also look at the y-axis to find the y-intercept. So make sure you fill that in as the y-intercept of the line, or the B. And then lastly, you use those 2 things. You use the slope and you use the y-intercept to fill in your y equals mx plus b equation. So for these examples, we are going to write an equation of the trend line that is going through the scatter plot. So again, the format is y equals mx plus b. So the blue and the pink, we need to replace those with numbers. I always start with the pink. This line starts at the number 8, so that is our y-intercept. Now, to find the slope, I'm going to add these blue dots. So those are not data points. They might overlap with the data point, but you add your own points to the line. For this line, we would have to travel down 1 unit and to the right 3 units. So that would make my slope a negative, because we went down, -1 over 3. X always comes after the slope, and then I would say +8 because that is where the line started on the y-axis. So that is the equation of the trend line. For number 6, same idea. Write the format of the equation, y equals mx plus b, a linear equation. Where does this line start? It starts at 100. So that's our B, but you have to be careful when you count up or down or to the right, it doesn't always go up by ones. As you can see, the y-axis of this graph is going up by 25s. So even though I just went up 1 box, that should count as going up 25. And then when I go to the right, that is still going to the right 2 units because the x-axis is still going up by ones. So to throw that all together, y equals my slope was up 25 to the right 2. So 25 over 2, x plus 100. And I left it as 25 over 2 because I can't simplify that. I would have gotten a decimal. I would get 12.5. So I just leave it as a fraction. Last example, number 7, same thing. Y equals This line starts at, it looks like 45 because the y-axis is going up by fives. So that's my starting point right there. And now I'm going to zoom in a little bit and make some more points. So I'm going to go from the pink dot to the blue dot, which caused me to go, it's down 2 boxes, but remember that would be going down 5 and then 5 more. So down 10 and then to the right 1. Down 10, right 1. So my slope is -10 over 1. Put x after the slope and then plus 45 for the y-intercept. Okay, 3 examples of how to find the equation yourself of the trend line. Okay, take a look at number 8. So to find the slope of the trend line below, Riley chose the points 1, 80. I'm going to make that the green dot on my graph, and also the point 2, 30, which I'm going to make the purple dot on my graph. So she used those 2 points. Those look like data points to me. So for part A, explain whether the point she chose will help her write the correct equation of the trend line. So I said no. Reason I'm saying no is those 2 points, they are data points and they are not points that are actually on the line itself. So something along those lines would be a great explanation for that. Now find the actual equation of the trend line. So same thing I did on the front, y equals mx plus b. And now I'm going to do it differently than Riley did it. I'm going to use points that are on the trend line. So I like to start with the y-intercept. Looking at this line, zooming in, that line will cross the y-axis at the point 0, 90, that pink dot right there. And to find the slope, I'm going to go to that blue dot. So looks like we're traveling down. Now it's down 20 because we're going 2 boxes on the y-axis. So 90 to 80 to 70, that's down 20. And to the right, 1. So to put it all together in an equation, y equals -20 over 1. Put x after the slope and then plus 90 because that's where it crosses the y-axis. All right, looking at number 9, which of the following scatter plots could have a trend line with an equation of y equals 2x plus 5? So the tricky part about this question, all of the choices, there are no numbers on the graph. But you have to realize that this trend line has a positive slope. So I'm getting rid of any choice with a negative slope. So A is a negative slope and D is a negative slope. Now also the y-intercept is a positive 5. So if you actually draw the trend lines for our 2 remaining choices, so there's the trend line for C, and it would cross right about there, the y-axis. And if you draw the trend line for B, it would cross right there. So only one of those could be crossing at a positive. Choice B is crossing at 0. So the only logical choice would be choice C. Make sure you explain your choice as well. So I said that scatterplot C has both, right? We needed both of these things, both a positive slope and a positive y-intercept. Okay, last question of the lesson. Mrs. Hamilton surveyed some of her students by asking how many minutes they spent studying for their math test and the score they made on the math test. The results are shown below. So the x-axis of this scatter plot is how many minutes they spent studying for their math test. So that's on the x-axis. On the y-axis, that is reflecting their test score. So just looking at the trend like we've done in lesson 1 and 2, it looks like there's a relationship. The more minutes you study, the higher your test score, which logically I think makes sense. So the first question, part A, says, what is the slope of the trend line? So I put those blue dots to help me find the slope. It looks like this is a positive slope because we had to go up and to the right. We had to go up from 60 to 70, which is up 10, and then to the right. Now, be careful, the x-axis in this question is going up by a bit more. So that was up 10 to the right 15. And make sure you simplify if possible. 10 divided by 15 is equivalent to 2 over 3. Now for part B, what does the slope mean in the context of the situation? You have to remember when we're doing real life situations, traveling up and to the right or down and to the right means something. So going up to right 3, the up number had to do with the test score, and the to the right number had to do with the amount of minutes. So to me, 2 over 3 means that your test score will increase by 2 points for every 3 minutes that you spend studying. We also could have said your test score will improve by 10 points for every 15 minutes you spend studying. Remember, those are equivalent fractions, but we like to talk about the most simple fraction. So again, your score will increase by 2 for every 3 minutes that you study. Continuing along for part C, what is the y-intercept of the trend line? So we are looking where that line crosses the y-axis. That's that pink dot right there, and that is at 60, 0, 60. Now again, just like the slope has some meaning to the situation, the y-intercept also has some meaning. 0, 60 is saying if you study for 0 minutes, right, that's where the 0 comes from on the x-axis, the predicted score based on the line is a 60. Now that doesn't mean if you don't study, you're always going to get a 60. It's just based on the data. That's the predicted score. You could see there's a point on there where someone who studied for 0 minutes, they scored between 70 and 80. But again, that is predicted based on the line. And the last part, part E, to actually write this as an equation. So y equals, we're going to put the slope in for m. So that's where 2/3 should go. X should come after the slope, and then plus 60, our y-intercept. Okay, that's the whole lesson. Make sure that you write 3 sentences for summarizing today's lesson down here. When you're finished with the video lesson, make sure you click submit on Edpuzzle, and then you could come over and grab the salmon colored homework sheet.